Shalom Aleichem everyone, hope everyone is well. It is now Tisa Esther, Erev Purim, and very, very busy times here in Yeshiva, obviously. The Mevaseret, Safek, 2 days of Yantif, 1 day of Yantif, into a Shabbos, a lot going on. I want to share with you a very quick Dvar Torah that perhaps will tie in a theme that we find in Purim and the Parashat Shavua, Parashat Tisa. So the Gemara Maseches Megillah wants to know, and one certainly can ask the question, why do we celebrate Purim the way we do? It's so antithetical to Torah. The idea of getting drunk and Yeshivat Bachrim and being all over the place, and like it's a very strange way that, we do celebrate. We celebrate with food, sometimes we'll even celebrate with wine. Maseches Megillah Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph. Why exactly, what was the reason that Bnei Yisrael were deserving of the challenge, the threat of Haman? Why is it that they were, the Gemara says, Mipnei man yischayvu Yisrael ba'os hador kliya. Why is it that they were deserving of the threat that Haman posed? And Amar lahem, the Gemara answers, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai answers, Mipnei shenehenu meisudaso shel oso rasha. Because they partook of the Suda of Achashverosh. They were there celebrating with Achashverosh in his Suda. Now, you think about that Suda, it's a very, very striking Suda. The Megillah tells us that Achashverosh had this party for 180 days. And it seems like the whole culture in Shushan was a culture of partying and festivities. And while we know, the Gemara tells us very clearly that it was, and the Megillah tells us, Shtiyah kados ein ones, everything was in accordance with their religion, and people did not have any, the food was kosher, everything was mahadrin and mahadrin, but the Jews somehow really got into the Suda, got into the partying. And what happens when a person gets into partying in an inappropriate way, without a proper cause, without a proper structure and framework for the celebration, so very quickly that celebration will shift from what in theory could have been innocent, but if it gets excessive, it shifts often into a sense of licentiousness, into gili arayos, into 100% inappropriate usher type of activity. We find that today all too often, and the Megillah describes this as well, and the Gemara describes it. Chazal explain on the very next daf, Maseches Megillah Daf Yud Beis Amud Beis, the Gemara tells us that by Yom HaShvi'i, in the 7th day of partying, again, 180 days, but we're on day 7. Ketov Lev HaMelech Bayayin, when the king is joyful, when he's happy with his intake of wine. So the Gemara says it took him 7 days to reach that state. 7 days. He must have been happy already 6 hours in, a day in. Why 7 days? So the Gemara says something amazing. The pasuk says Biyom HaShvi'i, not the 7th day of the party, but on Shabbos. Amar Rava Yom Hashvi Shabbos Haya. And what did the Jews do on Shabbos? What did Achashverosh do? So the Jews on Shabbos, they also have festive meals. And perhaps there's even sacramental wine. There's Kiddush also at our festive meals. Yisrael Ochlim V'Shosim and Matchilim B'Divrei Torah. And they say Divrei Torah U'V'Divrei Tishbachos. And they sing the songs of praises of the Ribbon Shalom. That's what we do at our structured festive meals. And what happened at that meal? Aval Umos HaOlam She'Ochlim V'Shosim Ein Matchilim Ela B'Divrei Tiflus. They start eating and drinking and they engage in licentiousness, frivolity, inappropriate activities. V'chein b'sudas sh'olsa rasha. What happened was, the Gemara describes that the men were partying, and then they started bragging about their women. And this man from Madai said, Madaios, the women of Madai, they're the most naos. They're the most attractive. And then the Persian said, no, Parsios naos. And then Achashverosh, in a very, very vile formulation, he says, no, it's not the Parsim, and it's not the Madaios, but rather the Kazdim. And the Kazdi, Vashti was a Kazdi, the Kazdiem, they're the most beautiful. And the men said, okay, prove it. Show it to us. And Vashti was invited, but only without any clothing on. And this is where the party starts to decay into a atmosphere of Gili Arayos, of decadence, of total pritzus. The Gemara contrasts a Jewish celebration, a Shabbos, with the parting of Achashverosh, the decadence of that parting. And we know very clearly that that's where things can lead. When it's in that kind of drinking environment, in a Goyish society, without that sense of real Kedusha, things slip very, very quickly into what is described in this Gemara. And perhaps one can suggest, why do we celebrate Purim, the Nitzachon, the defeat of Haman, the defeat ultimately of the lifestyle of Achashverosh? Why do we celebrate the way we do? Perhaps it's a tikkun for this point, is to instill in us, yes, we can have festive meals too, and perhaps even a bit of alcohol. But the goal, the end goal, is what the Gemara here describes, the Yom HaShvi'i, is the way we celebrate a Shabbos, is to go ahead and uplift it with Divrei Torah, with Shiros v'Tishbachos, celebrate our relationship with Ribono Shel Olam, celebrate the Nitzachon, celebrate that sense of joy. And yes, maybe, as we do on Pesach night as well, we make toasts to Hashem, toasts to our relationship to Hashem. Have a sense of Harchavas Halev, a broad-mindedness where we feel full of that sense of Kedusha. But that is perhaps how we need to celebrate on Purim, a tikkun for those who celebrated, who were Nenem Yoso Asuda, because maybe it starts perhaps innocent, but it quickly degrades itself into things that are far, far from innocent. And perhaps a time to this week's Parsha, because you'll find in Parashat Tisa, we have the Egel Hazav, and obviously a terrible, terrible Avera. But if you look at the Psukim carefully, it seems that what bothered Moshe, perhaps even more than the Ched HaEgel, was the atmosphere that surrounded the Ched HaEgel. Because the Pasuk tells us, Perek Lamed Beis, Pasuk Yites, Vahi kasher karv el ha-machane, when Moshe goes and sees the machane, Vayares HaEgel. But he didn't just see the Egel, he saw umecholos, and the dancing, and the partying, and the celebration of the Egel. That is what caused Moshe to have a tremendous sense of anger and to throw down the luchos, to smash the luchos. And the psukim describe these mecholos. It's one thing, a person slips. We do averos, we fall. That happens, it happens to everyone. But when we start to celebrate the averos, when we start to regale these averos with an atmosphere of frivolity, of levity, of a joy in the avera, so then there's no way out. There's no way back, and that's what prompts Moshe to smash the luchos. You see, in both the Megillah, our Purim story, and in Parashat Tisa, we find a notion of partying, if you will. Partying in a wrong context, and perhaps a lesson of how to go ahead and party. The Megillah is crystal clear. Partying without any structure, with no reason, leads to tremendous, tremendous sin. And partying in a way that toasts our relationship with Ribono Shel Olam can be very, very uplifting. And then, when it comes to our Parashat Tisa, yes, people sometimes fall. But how do we take those falls? Do we celebrate our averos? Do we rationalize our averos? Do we dance in the presence of our averos? Or do we realize, al chet, I made a mistake, I sinned, I will try and do better next time. I think Moshe Rabbeinu understood that once he saw the rikudim, the mecholos, the musical instruments playing, celebrating our relation to the Egel, he knew there was no chance. He had to do something dramatic, and he breaks the luchos to make that point. Striking lessons that we find from both Parshas Kisisa and the Purim story, the Megillah story, and Bez Hashem, we will take these lessons, build ourselves, know what a Yiddish simcha truly is, and really regale in our very singular, very unique, and very special relationship that we have with the Ribono Shel Olam.